Hello, 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 fellow humans and eavesdropping bots. I'm Chris Nolan.
Hey guys, I'm Mike Schindler. I am one of the instructors at Captain Kirk University. I love this, Chris. Captain Kirk University. This is where we teach advanced courses in boldly going into the future.
We got to open that pretty soon here. So, everybody, welcome back to the Rise of Humanness show, where we explore what it means to stay human in an increasingly automated, uncertain world.
And guys, be sure that you hit that subscribe button, share with your friends. We're not very picky about who you share
Strangers, people you don't know, we're not picky. Right.
And together, we're going to show you how to stay absolutely powerful,
Stay human.
and rise and thrive in the age of AI.
Yes. And even show you how to beat the bots. Well, let's rise.
The rise of humanness in the age of AI. It's a podcast with Chris and Mike. The rise of humanness in the age of AI. Stay curious, stay human, let's rise.
What is going on now? Hey, Mike, are you hitting the recorder?
I hit the recorder, Chris, because
We're on. Let's go.
Okay,
Well,
so,
this is where the
Diana,
magic
what
happens.
is the deal?
Yeah.
I'm starting to feel a little insecure because we just had Sahn on, and he has the big glasses too.
Oh, I
Yes.
know. Your glasses are exceptional.
Very nice too. And
I'm
I'm getting a
not
little
going to wear
jealous.
those
Okay,
glasses.
next time I see John, I'm gonna have to tell him I want on the glasses front.
Yeah, but they're Tom Ford. And I guess he reached out to them or something, and they sent it back to him with every color of the rainbow. He's got red, he's got Nicholson red, he's got blue, I think he's got yellow for aviation flights. I don't know. But, yeah, they're like,
John's way more slick than me.
He's
100%.
got great hair, too. He's got amazing hair. I mean, that's the thing. He's like, no, they said I kind of look like a model.
Mike,
so they sent me all
everybody
these
compared
glasses.
to you has amazing hair.
I know that part is true. That part is.
We were watching now and where are you? Were you in Hong Kong?
Yes, I'm in Hong Kong.
Okay. So we were watching White Lotus last night, which is in Thailand,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
I've seen
Beautiful.
that.
Gosh, I mean, that show's so smart because you feel like you're on vacation, right? Most of the time.
In a sort of creepy
It's incredible.
way.
So,
Yeah.
so we're watching it, and I know Mike's watching it, and they had a little excerpt in it where two women are at the bar, and you go, yeah, I'm married to a bald-headed American. We call them, what is it? Bald head left behind?
BLMs.
BLMs? Yeah. And then Diana,
No,
they
bald head left BLBs or something like
BLB,
that.
something like that. So then they pan these two tables, and they're all these bald-headed expats,
They
right?
look like me.
They look like Mike.
No kidding. I don't even remember that part.
No, this
Oh, did you watch it?
three. It's in season 3. They just released.
Yeah, season 3.
Oh,
just
I
started
haven't seen season 3. I've seen the first 2.
Oh,
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Okay. I'm gonna
Well,
think of you, Michael.
I know.
Yeah.
When they pan to that scene, you'll be like, "There's Mike."
Now, how long have you lived in Hong Kong?
25 years.
No
My
kidding.
gosh, no kidding.
Yeah. Off and on.
Wow, was I still in the
Wow.
Navy? I wasn't in the Navy, but we stopped in Hong Kong. I got off the.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
got off
think
the
you do
boat.
that anymore.
I don't think we do.
They don't
Yeah,
let you because
wow.
it's Chinese now, Mike. I don't know if you know that.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they don't, but I've been like, when I was on the board at the American Chamber, we did like the aircraft carrier came in and it was amazing. Like they had us all over, we got to be on those elevators with the planes that go
Oh,
up.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Well,
It's my
let me ask you this. How, because you've got a very interesting name. So you said Diana Wu, how does that work? Are you
My
married?
husband, I
Your
stuck him in
husband?
the middle.
Oh, you stuck
So-
him in the middle. Wow.
So I
Oh,
used
is
to
that
be,
how it works? Oh.
it was because of my Gmail. I used to be Diana K. David, and then we got married, and I was like, oh, I need a Gmail, new Gmail or something. And I was like,
Well,
well,
Leslie, it's a short name in the middle, so it does
thank
kind
God,
of
yeah. Whenever
Yeah.
we go to India, they're like, woo, okay, WU, what's next? They're waiting for
Yeah.
the next 18, words. But yeah, it's just woo. And the other thing is my Chinese name means ambassador of peace and tranquility. And the way that
No kidding.
Cantonese works, Cantonese Chinese, is that it would be peace, tranquility, and then his Cantonese name is which is sort of sounds like no. So it was like no peace and tranquility. I felt like that was unlucky.
Oh,
So so anning would be, or anning is would could be my
Oh,
Chinese.
that's interesting. Wow.
no.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well,
We got so much to unpack on this call. So, Diana, here's how it kind of works. Uh, Chris and I kind of run this like Smartless. I don't know if you've ever heard of that podcast or not, but it's got
Nope.
Jason Bateman and Will Arnett, and they just kind of banter back and forth. Sometimes we banter. We really showcase you, though. That's why we've had so many amazing people on this podcast. Just great. But we really want to dive into your knowledge. We give you the floor. Sometimes we'll push back a little bit, maybe. Sometimes I get lost because I'm so fascinated
yeah,
by what
Mike just leaves sometimes. He just
I
walks.
do. I'm like, this is so great.
I don't know if
I
that's
won't I
disturbing
won't
to
take it
you
personally.
or that breaks up your flow, but
Are you
it
going to ask a
happens.
question, Mike? I'm like, no, this is just so fascinating.
Oh, there goes Mike.
Yeah.
He'll be back.
But we go about 45 minutes and then we're going to put a whole package together for you. We'll ship it out. We'll promote it. Yours will probably come out in March,
Cool.
mid-March into March. We'll let you know when that does happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we go down rabbit holes. And if you want to go down a rabbit hole, it's fine. We'll pull you back out. We'll be like Alice in Wonderland or
Or maybe not.
you down there, one of the two.
Off
Yeah.
with her head.
Yeah.
It's
All right. Well,
expendable.
let's go.
Let's go. Let's
Okay.
do it. Let's do
All
it.
right.
Sounds great.
All right. Hello, 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 fellow humans and eavesdropping bots. I'm Chris Nolan.
And I'm Mike Schindler. We're your instructors from Captain Kirk University, where we teach advanced courses in boldly venturing into the future.
Yes, welcome back to the Rise, Rise, Rise of Humanness show, where we explore what it means to stay human in an increasingly automated, uncertain world.
Oh my gosh. And guys, but we've got an amazing guest on the show. So we just want to be sure that you subscribe, you hit the subscribe button, you share it with your friends, you share it with your non-friends.
Anybody, we're not picky, just
We're
have them
not
hit the
picky.
share button. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and so today we have with us someone who knows exactly how to future-proof your career, your leadership, and your mindset in the age of acceleration. Diana Wu David is the #2 top futurist strategist in the world. #2. Wow, huh?
Yeah, I
Diana's
know
here to
all
tell
my,
us.
I'm sitting here in Hong Kong, actually coming to you from the future. I think we're 16 hours ahead now.
I love that.
I'm so-
I
Even
like
better. Look
that.
at this. This is the first time we've had a
Yes.
guest from the future.
There you
Yes.
go. Yeah.
Yes, she's a day ahead. So she's actually in the future. So she's going to tell us, in the world of AI, why the rise of humanness is still the ultimate advantage.
Yeah, and Chris, here's what I love about Diana. Diana is also the CEO of Future Proof Lab. She's the author of Future Proof, Reinventing Work in the Age of Acceleration, which Inc. magazine, get this, Inc. magazine named a top 10 innovation book. I love that. She's advised some of the biggest companies in the world, including Google, the NBA, Fortune 500 giants. I'm looking at this big laundry list. I could keep going on about Diana Wu David.
Woo!
Amazing, but she's really here to help us, the audience, essentially upgrade to human 2.0.
Or maybe human
Mhm.
3.0. Diana's background is really amazing. She's gone from an Arizona rodeo princess to an executive at the Financial Times. Yes, woohoo! Right.
Love that.
She's assisted Dr. Henry Kissinger, and she specializes in decoding the future because she's a day ahead before it blindsides the rest of us.
So she's essentially going to be here to help us figure out how to make all this stuff work for us and not against us. So that's what I really like about this. I'm very excited about this episode, Chris. So
Yes,
I
but
want to
say this great thing. Mike always says this. He says how there's a joke out there about how where AI liberates you and it frees you up for creative time in the workplace, right? Which Mike just says is a fancy term for unemployment. So
it's,
if
yeah,
you
it's-
feel that way, this episode is for you. So let's dive in. Diana, welcome to the rise of humanness.
Thank you. I'm super pro-human, so I can't wait to unpack it with you.
We're all pro-human.
we're pro-human.
We're
Yeah,
pro-human.
Mike is a little
Yeah.
pro-AI. No, he's so saying that. What uniquely human skills can humans cultivate to thrive in this rapidly evolving AI-driven hyper-speed marketplace? What's the truth no one is telling you why won't AI steal your job?
So what are the uniquely human skills? Our ability to connect with each other,
Mm.
our ability to banter. And
Yeah.
Yeah,
maybe, I don't know, I've had Google Notebook banter. I've heard that. That's pretty good.
Mia's
But
not bad, but
not bad, but
a little
it's not.
corny, but that's okay.
So yesterday, I hosted a lunch for people who are interested in tech and human flourishing. It was
Mm.
at the World Flourishing Organization, and somebody in from Berlin to
Cool.
Hong Kong to talk about warm space. And it was really interesting, and it touched upon this idea of our humanness because I'm super pro-human, but also really into tech and have been, since the early internet days. And even I worked at Time Warner when we were launching
So you're
CD-ROMs,
conflicted a little
boom,
bit.
boom, boom,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
and Second Life. But I think we're leaning into where we connect to each other, where there's a human face to face, where we can see each other and hear each other, listen, etc. Those are important human traits. And, let's face it, we don't actually do them that well. Not
Yeah,
all the
that's our
time,
point.
right?
We're thinking that it needs to expand.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing about yesterday was this was interventions in our conversations, meetings that were science-backed ways that we could augment our humanness. And by that, I don't mean,
Mm.
a little ping that happens on my husband's phone that says, "Did you tell your wife she looks good today?" or something like that. But
Yeah. Yeah.
which could also be good, but something that allows us and creates the space and some equitability around the space and time and some prompts to connect us to each other more deeply before we go into some of the collaborative problem solving or mobilizing or innovating that I think are places where humans can, unleash their imagination and creativity in a way that is truly human, and I think that those are the human skills that we're leaning into. I hope, and what I sometimes fear is that people will not use the tech. They'll say, "Oh, I'm not going to do that. That's,
Yeah.
it's not great." People are
Yeah.
complaining about ChatGPT flooding LinkedIn comments, for instance. And so they just go, "Oh, I'm not going to use any of that." We're in an iterative, playful moment where we're trying to figure out where the best places are to use
Mhm.
technology and how to make our human abilities better. And we got a ways to go. Like, I know I
2.0, we call it. Exactly. I love the fact, Mike, that is exactly what we say, how to really get there. This is what we think is that people need to get deeper into their behavioral, their beliefs,
Oh, yeah, totally.
habits, their old
Yep.
stories, kind
Yep.
of mine that out to get to that point where you're talking about. So you don't need an AI intervention to make sure that you're human. Which I love that idea. Sorry, we have a human intervention with you. You've gone too geek. Here.
Because you're not human enough. Well, that's
Yeah.
that's an interesting point that you I think the fear, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, Diana, because you work with all these major individuals and companies and things. Based on what you see, do you think people fear technology because they're not comfortable with who they are? So they're threatened. They're really thinking that AI is going to steal my job. I mean, I don't know. We're seeing that happen.
Or
So,
they're insecure. Maybe they feel that some embrace it because they feel I'm limited. It'll raise me, Mike. We've talked about that to a
right, that's why I think if you know who you
democratization level.
are,
But right, maybe some are like, it's an affront to my identity or whatever,
yeah. I mean,
There's
what do you
probably
see?
some, this is AI therapy.
I
Welcome to
know,
AI
I know.
therapy,
Yeah, we're going to put
where
this
we
in as a
dive
therapy
deep into the
session.
subconscious mind of
Yeah.
ChatGPT. Go ahead.
Well, the internet, my dad was a psychiatrist, which
Oh,
could
good.
explain a lot, but we used to joke that his job was safe. His was the only one that was safe.
Yeah.
And the reality is that people do like, machine learning therapy or AI therapy because it's not judgy. So he's no longer
Yeah.
with us, but his job wouldn't have been safe. So good to know. Two things. So one, Mike, that you talked about was really interesting because I did a lot of research. The origin of my book was a lot of senior people saying, I feel like I can future-proof my company, but I am increasingly worried I can't future-proof myself. And these
Ooh,
were, senior leaders,
Yeah.
and they kept having coffees and saying, Diana, what should I do? And I was like, why are you asking me? What?
Yeah.
So,
because you
um,
know you can see the future. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, well, I mean, you're always one step ahead, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
But
One page at least.
I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are asking just, how do I do it? I mean, because you're right. I mean, this is a term that's thrown out there a lot. Future proof,
Well,
future.
wait, I want her to finish the point, Chris.
Yeah, exactly.
She was really getting
and
good.
here's the
Good.
secret.
Yeah.
So I felt like
Secrets.
it was an idea worth pursuing. And I interviewed 100 people and I said, okay, you've had interesting careers or you've changed or you pivoted. And, they were the people who you look at and you go, oh, they get it. They know the future. Or it's not
Mm.
that they know the future, but they have a better sense of their future.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of things that they did. One, they had an attitude of experimentation, not brittleness, like, I wonder what would happen and what are my assumptions? How can I test them? They understood reinvention and adjacent aspects or environments they could go into or things that they could add on. They developed the ability to focus. And I don't think people are worried about AI as much as overwhelmed by an extraordinary amount of change, so they don't really know
Mm.
where to start.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And then they were able to really think about how to collaborate with other people in new and virtual ways. So that's one of the things that I found. And then in terms of grounding, since the book came out for about 5 years, I have a community of future-proof people because somebody said, "Okay, Greg, the book's great. Can we just get together and like talk about this?" And I said, "Sure, let's do that." And there's a big global community now. And what I've found, and very organic, it's not like I'm telling people what to do. I'm bringing them together to talk about the things that they wonder about.
It's great.
Um, and it was grounding in your own values as a way to deal with
Mhm.
these like winds buffeting you of, and now there's AI,
Yeah.
and then behind that is quantum, and there's so much change personally and professionally. And then it was about storytelling, which you guys should love because you're
Yeah.
Yeah.
master storytellers.
We'll
Yeah.
talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're connecting, your connections. So, what are my values? How are they expressed in my work? What is the story that I can tell, and what is the new story about the future me? And who are the people that I need to connect to and tell that story to so that I can open myself to new projects, opportunities, ways to engage as things are changing. So
Mm.
that's
That's
what I've
huge. What a
been.
great experience. And then the community, along those lines, since you're a futurist, and this is the vision for the future thing, futurist Barbara Marx Hubbard said the future exists first in imagination, then
Mhm.
in will, then in reality. And as you see the future, so you act. And as you act, so you become. So, in
Mm,
other words, all of that vision of the future, that new story, creating that new story in your mind is huge. It's actually how we're going to rebrand the future. But the problem is we've got a dystopian story now, pretty much everywhere. It's kind of the Hollywood
Yeah.
story about AI,
Yeah.
what AI will do and what the future will be like. And the problem with that is, as you know, storytelling wise, it's like branding because
yeah.
business marketing too. Everything's about the story. It's not about the shoe. It's not Nike's about not about the shoe. It's about the story. And so now we've got a very weird, strange story surrounding AI, and everybody's scared out of their mind, which is what's great, what you're doing, because you're kind of flipping that narrative.
And there are protopian stories that are coming out. And the
My favorite
interesting
word.
thing
Yeah.
about what is that?
It's my favorite word, protopian.
I know.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Kevin Kelly, love
He
it.
mumbles. Diana, you gotta ask him. Sometimes he's like, oh yeah, I love that point. Just keep going.
Blah,
And
blah,
you're
blah.
Didn't want to miss what you said.
yeah.
So there is, and I see that. And one of the things I feel really strongly about as an American who's been in Asia for a long time is
Yeah.
elevating some of the stories maybe you don't hear, and the
Hmm.
US still has a lock on the storytelling, let's face it, in
Yeah.
particular from Hollywood and other places. But there's more climate fiction coming up, and the Dubai Future Forum has just launched a new sci-fi storytelling. Arizona State University has a Center for Science and Imagination that
Yeah.
seeds new sci-fi. And there are a lot of young Asian voices that I try to lift up because Asia is projected to be over 50% of GDP in the next few years. And you can see,
Mhm.
the demographics shifting here before they move on to Africa. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
a lot of it is the youth in places like Indonesia and Vietnam. And so, while many, many futurists focus on the technology, which I do and I love, I also, in Future Proof, the book, I focused on demographics, geopolitics. I mean, you really can't run a business without thinking about those things. And in fact, futures, strategic foresight and futures thinking really started in Shell, right? In Shell oil. And the things they were doing scenario planning around were geopolitics and,
Mhm.
oil shocks and regulation. And so I think that there is the technology, and that is one fun aspect. But looking into the futures and inculcating this futures mindset is not just about technology. It's about the way humans are changing. It's the way, the world is changing, and it's developing the capacity to be able to scan the horizon within your team, within your company, for
But
them
is
to
that
spot.
message resonating, Diana? I mean, I hear what you're saying, and Chris and I are 100% believers in this. I mean, we truly believe human 2.0, human 3.0. We believe that the humans have to be developed. We've got to elevate to the next level in many ways, pull out our human values and our human intelligences. But is that message resonating with those who are running companies today? Because it seems like they're like, hey, listen, if I can get an AI bot to do this, I can, improve my shareholder value, which improves my bottom line, which improves my golden parachute. So how do you change that narrative? Or are we just seeing the wrong headlines?
It's interesting. You mentioned you had John Sahn on your podcast, and he was saying that he's going to an event with a bunch of government people.
Hmm.
And often I'm keynoting, at these big commercial events and company events. And you don't see a lot where they cross over.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're right. And I don't think that, and maybe, for a listed company, for shareholders, maybe they don't have to, but they're not thinking about how am I going to solve the big societal problem of job loss? Like that's not what companies are set up for, and their shareholders don't expect them to. There has been a whole movement of how stakeholder capitalism will ultimately make you more profitable. That's not particularly in favor in this moment, but there are people thinking about that. And the reality is, you can't just replace everyone and have no humans. There has to be humans in the loop.
Hmm.
And the smartest companies are really planning how they can use, like we said before, technology, be that AI or otherwise, to augment their human capabilities. Does that mean less humans within a corporation? Maybe. Maybe it
Hmm.
Yeah.
does.
The thing is that the way Mike and I look at it with the rise of humanists. So we see right now you can plug into AI and you can get 100 IQ points. Next year it's 200. Next year after that it's 400. Year after that it's 800. And then it's up to 1,000 or whatever, right? So at some point in time, the future, and you're right, we have all kinds of futures, friends. I think we have 10 of the top 20, including you, number two on the podcast. But the trends, just the AI trends and the technology trends, at some point in time, there's just going to get overwhelming to humans because we're going to deal with something that's got an IQ of 5,000. So where Mike and I are at, and this gets to our storytelling question now, right? Which we talked about back and forth. So, yes, so that is a mastery that humans need for competency. The story, though, I think, futurist wise, is that you're going to have to say, well, what makes a premium human being in this age? In other words, what makes a human 2.0?
Yeah.
A person that's not fearful, a person that's not limited, a person that has your traits of, able to go outside their comfort zone,
Yeah.
totally go where Captain Kirk did, right? All of
Yep.
those traits, anti-fragile resilience, all that stuff.
That's right.
So that may be what we start to track. That may be the new story. We call it, I think there's three A's. You get enhanced with AI, then you have to expand who you are to kind of incorporate all this new tech that's happening. You have to elevate yourself to the new story,
Hmm.
right? You said to go
Yeah.
from the old story to the new story. You have to explore, stay curious, right?
Yeah.
And evolve so you don't go extinct, right?
Did
Right.
you say three A's and then you gave me five E's?
I
Is that
said
what
three E's. I said
I
three
know?
E's.
I'm
I
gonna
heard
go
You
back.
three
got
A's
it. You
too.
got
It
it.
was
I
good
heard
though.
three
Your
Ears
head
are
A's.
was on
bad.
our
You need
toes.
headphones.
I
You need
heard
headphones.
three
So anyway,
A's.
so let's go to our question now. So all that storytelling, even more important. So how can storytelling help humans win in the future of work?
That's a good question. Yeah.
Well, if you're a leader, then you're telling a story of something that doesn't exist yet.
Good.
So for sure, you have to be able to talk about that vision and make it as emotionally connecting or enticing as you can. You have to allow people to put themselves into the future so
Hmm.
that it reduces the fear and anxiety, it expands the excitement, and it has some kind of clarity of the call to adventure
Hmm.
that makes people think, wow, yeah, I could do that.
Yeah.
So I'm so passionate about that. I just did a TED Talk actually. It's not out yet on human potential in an age of AI. And it was all
Mm.
about that. It was about saying, look, AI should not be something that like three guys in Silicon Valley invent that the rest of us just go, okay, we'll try and keep up. It should
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
something that every single person can imagine, you know, going out into the world and using as their superpower. And it's about being able to use it to coordinate Halloween trick or treating in our apartment buildings, which are all, 50 floors. And have you ever tried to get a bunch of little kids up and down 50 floors and three towers?
Wow.
We used AI, right? A bunch of moms go, okay, great. We're going to plug in all the things and we're going to track what's the most optimal way to
Oh,
get a
that's
bunch
great.
of kids through that. Like that could be an AI thing. My friend in the UK, who's a fashion designer, invented and developed and produced jackets that during COVID would allow you to send a hug to your elder in a care home that you couldn't
Oh,
see and you couldn't touch just with the phone. And that was so amazing. They're jackets that are built in with sensors. It was so amazing that
Hmm.
now they're doing evidence-based trials for mutism in elders because they were playing songs and using the vibrations in the jacket, and they found that people who had not spoken for years were able to speak again. So, I mean,
that's
just some of
incredible.
those kind of things I think are amazing. And I want people who are fashion designers, who are, parents, who are professionals, who are writers to start thinking about these stories about what's possible.
That,
Yeah, because it's proactive.
yeah,
Stories
it's
are
totally.
Yeah.
proactive. But there's a knack to it. We're very good friends with Sean Callahan, who's in Australia. He has the largest business storytelling company in the world. It's like 80 officers. And
Hmm.
there's all kinds of business stories, and that story that you're talking about is a specific story, which we do a lot when we work with Disney and Google. It's called a change story. And you're right about it. Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's not hard, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
you craft that story and how you craft that message and how you craft that goal is like Star Wars. It's like the old story is this way. Here's what the disruption is. Here's the change. And like you said, it's like the three acts of a play or of a movie. Boom, boom, boom.
Mm,
Right? But
yeah.
if you can get that, you can, it's like Martin Luther King. You can
Yeah.
change the world.
Yeah, that is pretty amazing. I want to stay on this future proofing piece
Yeah.
because I love that story. Now I'm just thinking about a new movie, Chris.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's really
All of a sudden my
heartfelt, isn't
brain
it?
just went,
Yeah.
"Oh wow, that would make such a
Now I
great
want
movie."
clothes that do things.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so that's so great.
Mike's underwear glows, but that's
And now we didn't
Oh,
have.
we could talk for, for ages. I
yeah,
went to Thinkers 50 in a tux that had LED panels. It was great.
cool.
Oh my
That's
God. So,
great. I
well,
love that.
let's
Wow.
talk about your book. You wrote the book Future Proof, Reinventing Work in the Age of Acceleration. We call that VUCA Max. So an acronym for our world, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, massively accelerating exponentially, which is where we're at. This is like things
You
are
just
changing.
Hollywood supersized it.
We did.
I
I
was
mean,
like,
well, I mean,
reinvention. No, it's VUCA Max, the
it's
action adventure version.
it is.
Oh,
We
that's
got
so good. You
t-shirts.
know
I
us
should have
too
worn the
well.
VUCA Max
Oh,
t-shirt. It was such
okay.
a
We've been busted, but
Yep.
that's
Okay. And
brand.
I want a VUCA Max t-shirt.
Oh,
okay.
well, those are coming. Those are coming. So, how do you future proof? Seriously, like, how do you future proof yourself in this AI world that's moving at like warp speed? Like, I mean, it's like the Star Trek Enterprise on
Yeah,
warp
how do you
speed
keep up?
all the time. How do you do it?
That is the number one top question.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
So
where's your star?
I got the
I'd
top
have a
question.
star on a stick for Mike when he does a really good question.
So I don't think it's just AI. I think that as humans, we have trouble metabolizing change. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in the past, it was a little bit slower, and now
Mhm.
it's just exponential, one of your E's. And it really is difficult. So I've just wrote an article. We interviewed with my future work forum colleagues, a bunch of people about how in their companies they do that. I think that being able to focus, that's that focus virtue of being able to say, okay, who am I? What are my values? What am I trying to do in the world? And what are the things I need to pay attention to in order for that to happen? And
Yeah.
that, for instance, if I am trying to, let's take, I used to work for Financial Times, and for us it was, how do we go with this fairly affluent business audience and introduce new products? I was in corporate development and kind of an entrepreneur. And so while the journalists had to pay attention to everything, from that perspective, I could limit myself. I thought, okay, what's a new education product, for instance, that I can offer to this audience? And then I could scan and see what's going on and how might AI fit into that? How might geopolitics fit into that? How does, for instance, demographic change with everybody becoming
Mhm.
older fit into that? And then I would be scanning to figure that out. And maybe I would scan very broadly and look at all kinds of things, but it was for a specific use case. And that's what we found with the people in different companies. They said, we are able to just focus on what the customer need is. And that allows us to look broadly, but apply with focus. That is one trick, I would say, that is allowing people to look at all of the change and decide what's worth noticing. So, one of the things that I do is work with companies to set up signals groups. And it'll
Mm.
be a few hand-picked people that can execute on it and kind of shepherd it, but then anybody who wants to come, right? The snow melts from the edges. So having a young person in marketing that just joined coming in and saying, okay, I'll give you an example, a real example. So I worked with the National Basketball Association, the NBA.
Cool.
And in Asia, they wanted to pivot more to Web3 because during COVID, nobody could get on the court.
Mhm.
So that was, a deal breaker. And they also had a huge youth outreach program that was for new customers and new employees, which also was killed. So they said the Philippines is one of the biggest markets for Axie Infinity and some of the Web3 gaming, and that's one of our biggest markets. We could do a lot here. How can we start scanning the horizon for all the possibilities and see what small design sprints we can do to test our assumptions? And so the kind of constraints were, okay, we think it's Web3, it can be global, or let's say we'll start in Asia, but if we see something interesting, we'll see how we can port it in. Our goals are for the youth program to get young people playing basketball online during COVID. So that's an example of, they didn't have to look at EVs in China. They
Yeah.
like at least
Yeah.
not. I think that one of the EVs actually started a gaming console in the back of their cars, but maybe they would see that and then they'd come together, consolidate, kind of see what the effects were, and then see which ones, and together discuss what would be a useful opportunity for them to pursue further. And I want to highlight that together word because that's something that I believe in a lot, that collaboration. Even in the future proof community, we do cohorts. The next one's
Mhm.
March
Yep.
25th. You come together. It's not you in your pajamas at your kitchen table going, "What's my future?" It's like, "Oh, I heard about so and so's future." And all of a sudden, somebody said, "This is about confidence in your possibilities." And I never knew what the possibilities were until I got together with other people to hear what they were thinking. And so that I think is a huge human superpower.
So
Yeah, it's
I
great. Was
want to.
that because of Yao Ming? Is that why that was? Because he was such a Chinese basketball player star at the time, or was that the big bump?
You
Or
mean in terms of the popularity of basketball in
yeah,
Asia?
yeah, yeah. Or
No, it's got, I mean,
because that's
Scott,
around. Yeah,
in China for sure. Like China basketball went through the roof. Yao Ming and they really focused on it. And frankly, just the increasing consumer power in China has made
Mm.
a lot of different professional sports and going to games more interesting. But the
yeah.
Philippines is a huge basketball market, Australia. Yeah.
That's amazing. I want to circle back on this, Chris, because it was such a great explanation, Diane, of how do you future-proof yourself, in AI moving at warp speed. But can I summarize that? Is it fair to summarize that to
Mike
say
loves to summarize.
I do because it's my military
Summarizes me
brain.
sometimes, and he's
I
very
love
good.
that. Simplicity.
It's if
He's very simple.
you really want to future-proof yourself in this world that's moving so quickly, according to Diane Wu, David, then you've got to really collaborate. I think is what I hear you saying. Is that true? I mean, that's the key. Is you
It
can
helps. Yeah.
you yeah. Is it the key? It helps certainly, but is that fair?
I think for certain things, particularly for creativity and imagination,
Innovation.
there's not one person who makes a movie, for instance, not
Yeah.
even the
I don't
story.
know.
I don't know.
Years.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It's like jazz. You riff off each other and you think of new things. I do. Maybe it's just my, instinct, but I think gathering people together and making the most of their time together, which is a lot of the conversation around future of work,
Mm,
is huge. And we are just at the beginning of that, where we've had remote, back to work, et cetera. Like, what is it that allows us to come together and have a moment in our gathering in our teams
good
where we
wine, usually.
learn so much more? We expand our
Uh,
thinking, another one of your E's.
Yeah.
I
Hey, see,
really
there
do
we go.
think
We're going to
that
get a lot of ease here. Yeah,
you
well,
do.
that is the success of the human race. The success of the human race is that we had communities because we were like, pretty smart chimps at one time, but we were able to collaborate. And it's weird because we have all these different personalities and stuff. But when we want, we can form a community, have agriculture, form
Mhm.
manufacturing, all that stuff. That's one of our unique human superpowers of success, which may be eroding now with AI, I'm not sure. Which brings us to the question of even if it's collaborating, even if it's communication, even if it's storytelling, this is to your quote when you said AI can give you the ingredients, but you are still the chef. To me, I say you're still the director, right?
Mhm.
But will we still be cooking when it has, like, since you're a futurist, 2040, it's got a million IQ, right? How will we stay relevant when AI has an IQ of 5,000?
I
I'm
passed by.
extrapolating it into the future
Yeah.
more.
I wrote, so it's funny, related to the storytelling. I
Yeah.
was invited to this big corporate event, and they said, just tell a story of the future. And I was like, yeah, okay, really, just a story of the future. And
Oh, guys like that dance. Time for stories of the future.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, so I took it really literally,
Yeah.
and it was a friend of mine, and all of a sudden I was beaming in, and everybody else was on the dais, and they started going up one by one, and they all had PowerPoints with statistics on them, and I
Oh
was like,
no.
oh shit. What
Yeah.
they meant was not a story of the future. But what I did was I actually told a story about, Wanda from Wuhan, China,
Oh,
and
that's
she's
wonderful.
born in 2050, and
Yeah.
her
I love
work
that.
is decided by the algorithm. Actually, it was decided by DNA test. So
Yeah.
in China and in Korea, they have these 100 days parties, and they put out an abacus and a calligraphy brush, and the third one I can't remember. And they let the baby go for one of those, and then if they go for the abacus, it's like, oh, that baby is going to be in finance or accounting or
Yeah, of
something.
course. Yeah.
Wow.
One is
Yeah.
creativity, and so I said, yeah, we're all going to have DNA reveal parties, and the DNA is going to say, Chris, you must go into accounting. You've missed your calling. And then
Accounting would not be
everything's
good in 2040, I don't think. One of the ones that may go. That's true.
yeah. So anyway, I mean, those were some of my
That's
predictions, but
wonderful. That's it. That's great because that's going to resonate more with people. When Mike and I did the documentary, when Mike and I started working together, I think that's what I said to everybody when I interviewed them. I said, tell a story. Please tell a story because you just can't have facts and you can have a few, but if you can weave in a story and the stories always had great B-roll. Remember, Mike?
Oh my gosh, tremendous
Yeah.
B-roll.
And we've made the whole thing about Mike's family, actually, which was the story on a quest to figure out what was going on. So that's once again because if you don't have a story, people can't lean into it. They don't grasp it, because our brains are wired for story. They're not
yeah.
wired for lectures.
Well, the thing that's so amazing about the stories, and I often do those stories, and when you were talking about the CEOs, we're starting to teach CEOs stories. I've collaborated with Chen Fan, who's my friend who co-wrote with Kai Fu Lee AI 2041. But so
Hmm.
he's like an award-winning sci-fi writer, and I'm just,
Yeah.
corporate geek futurist. And when I did that story, that was an aha moment for me. Because first of all, I was like, oh, I've failed. I did this silly story. I had so many people contact me afterwards and say it was the first time that I could feel and see and kind of taste a future, right?
Mm,
Oh,
There are
that's
many
great.
possible
beautiful.
futures.
That's great.
Um, and I do think that that is a real, human aspect. And if we are around the table collaborating,
Yeah.
then, or even just having a conversation, those are things that we're going to have to get better at,
It's
and
storytelling. Yeah.
not
Yeah,
just
because
us
around the
who
table is
love
like being
stories
around
and
the
like to talk a
campfire.
lot, but incorporating the other people who maybe don't like that and are not comfortable with that and giving space and time for that. Yeah, I think that we're all going to have to
Hey,
get.
Chris, we're insulated because we're master storytellers.
Well, yeah. I
I mean,
mean,
my daughters are master storytellers too, especially when my youngest, when she's like, "Hey, Dad, I need $40," and then I get this really long story that I know she tapped into my talent on how to be creative to get $40. So,
Do you think
yeah,
she's
it's
using
sob stories.
ChatGPT?
oh, I no, I
How'd you
don't think
get
she
40
did.
bucks from my dad? Here's his website so you could figure out more about him.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a funny idea. Like, hey, Dad, I need $40. Mia, could you explain why?
That,
But it's
that's
the human, right? Like even if she gets the idea and the story from ChatGPT, it's her looking you in the eye with the little puppy dog eyes. Dad.
But here's the thing, because we write screenplays and we used ChatGPT for certain things. And it really is limited with storytelling in
Yeah.
a weird way because you can use it, you can push it. In other words, what's great about it, why we use it, is to add conflict, drama, and energy to scenes. In other words, you can use it, you can push it and say the stakes are higher. Because you know why?
Mm,
Because I did a whole post on this about how ChatGPT plays roles. It literally does because it's been
yeah.
programmed by humans. So you have urgency and it gets anxiety and it gets better. So it's really good for that. It's not so good. It's actually kind of generic with stories, which is why, even with what you might have done with your story, if you bring in those personal innuendos, those personal anecdotes and stuff, people
Hmm.
resonate to those more, which is your point about human storytelling.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because
And
yeah,
it means, well, back to our point about like knowing yourself and your own stories, a
yeah,
lot of the work that I do is about people talking about those stories. Like, what are my stories? How do
yeah.
I start to develop them in ways that, I teach at the business school as well, and they've all asked, how do I talk to people or tell them about me in a way that invites connection and kind of tells them a little bit about who I am in a short snippet. And so we work on their small stories, their leadership stories, their personal branding stories, their invitation stories. And it's really powerful.
It's hard because the most, as Mike knows, the best stories, we talk about this all the time, Mike, are authentic.
Yeah.
And I just had a good friend actually who was in Nashville who just took over a platform. And now she has to be an influencer. And she's very
Mm.
uncomfortable about it, right? And it's tough because you have to be kind of have to expose yourself
I
to
think
really
most
connect.
people are.
Yeah.
And in Asia, even more so.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, I think, what it comes down to people really, we talk about this with our military and veteran families because that's 15 years being in that space, working with rebranding essentially people's identity, right? That's what we're doing. We're, mission, purpose, identity. We're rebranding all of that when they get out. And it really starts, I believe, and this is where I think we're competitive against AI, to your point, Diana, is what does it mean to be your last name? I mean, if people just started there, like most people don't even know what it means to be their last name, right? So then, of course, they're going to be, well, I don't know how like, I'm not really concerned about somebody taking or AI taking over the Schindler name, right? Because I know what it means to be a Schindler. I know what it
people
means.
don't know who they are anyway. They
They
don't know
don't,
why, so
but
they don't
that's
know
the
the purpose.
opportunity, I think. That's where I
Hmm.
think AI is is magical, I think, if people leaned into it. I don't know, Diane. I mean, you see the future. You're in the future. You're coming to us 16 hours in advance. So what happens in 16 hours? I mean, do we eventually catch up to this idea that we know who we are and we realize that AI is actually our lightsaber that helps us win over the future?
In 16 hours, you wake up like usual, you have your cup of coffee.
Oh, Wonder
It
Woman.
doesn't
God,
change that
that
much.
was that was a Wonder Woman cup.
Unless you're in Australia, everything's upside down.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a really good point. And I use AI every day.
Yeah.
I'm completely, invested in new tech and have been pretty much every time something comes out, I, want to dive into it. And in fact, have a bunch of engineering students crawling over my business. And I do think about it like that. I think, okay, what are the things only I can do?
Mhm.
And it's my personal story. It's my ability to think and communicate and facilitate other people. And so a lot of it, I don't believe it has to be in person because I spent so much time, we had really strict quarantine. So I had spent so much time facilitating people virtually. We've got this virtual podcast. But I do think that if AI and AI agents can start to do a lot of the things that I don't want to do, I'll give you an example. One of the students, I just said, look, here's my whole business. I want you to start finding use cases and tell me how it works. So one of them is I have a conversation with a client, maybe two or three. We agree what we're going to do. That whole thing automatically populates into our standard contract. And I'm going to have to proofread it and make sure it's what it says in
Yeah.
there that I'm agreeing
Yeah.
to, but then it's done, right? I don't have to think about like, here's what we said, let me look through the transcript, etc. We just do it.
But I
So
think we're
that's the
gonna
next.
I think we're gonna find you're a fan of science fiction, I can tell. Um, we're
Yeah.
gonna find that the science fiction writers kind of pointed us in this direction. In other words, you take three stories. You take Blade Runner, Philip K. Dick, which is Do
Which
Androids
Hong
Dream of
Kong now
Jeeves?
looks like.
Yeah, that's basically an examination of what is it to be human? What is
Hmm.
it to have a conscience versus not a conscience? You
Yeah.
take 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is tools transform us, right? From the bone to the spaceship. Then you got past AI, got past technology, and became a star child. So that's about human evolution. All of these are about human evolution. Dune actually transcends AI to a group called the Menots, I think, and they do it without Neuralinks. They've actually expanded their intelligence.
Hmm.
AI existed for a while and allowed them to incorporate that into their neuroplasticity, and now they're like AI. So this is why we say 2.0 and 3.0, because we went from Cro-Magnon to Homo sapiens because we got the prefrontal cortex 1.0.
Mhm.
It's very possible that, we shape the tools and the tools shape us, Marshall McLuhan,
I think
that
so.
we now evolve to that star child, that may not, whatever you want to call it, right? So that's possibility, which leads me to my question.
Oh, good. I was
What is now the number one human skill you need to survive?
Mm.
And do people really have an idea of what that is?
I think
Sir,
the
I should say this.
number
The
one,
number
yeah,
one human skill you need to survive AI. And do most people know what that is?
the number one human skill that we need to survive is connection.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
good.
To survive
And
AI. Right. That's great.
will kind of survive anything. I mean, you guys
Mhm.
are in California. Look at when you think about what is an extraordinary human, and you hear a story of somebody going beyond the pale to save somebody else or do a kindness for somebody else,
Hmm.
maybe even a stranger, that is the power of connection. And that is our most extraordinary human trait. And AI can't change that.
So this is the next part, which I think you've just answered, because I don't think people understand connection that well.
You are
They do,
preaching to
they
the
do kind of
converted.
subconsciously. They
So
do kind of subconsciously, but I don't think a lot of people, maybe Mike, you want to chime in on this. Is it a skill?
Well, I mean, I think I said this a couple years ago. As soon as the emergence of social media came out, people stopped being social, right?
mhm.
They started really they build networks, but they don't know anybody in their network, right? They don't know the story of Diana.
This
They
is
don't know
what
the
I was going
story
to
of
get to.
Chris, right?
Exactly.
So I think to your
Social
point,
connection is social connection.
it's yeah, we need to go back to teaching people, hey, this is how you look somebody in the eye, this is how you shake their hand, this is how you listen. I mean, my dad taught
That
me
was a
this.
brilliant answer, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, my
No,
dad
I was saying this to Diana.
oh, well, she did have a brilliant answer, but I would take credit for
It's
that.
our answer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, now I see.
Now that's a
Piggybacking on it.
collective. We're part of the
Yeah.
board. I think it's being quick to listen, slow to speak. And if people really want to understand who the other person is, they should be more curious. And I think that's what you were saying is collaborate, be curious. And that's how we evolve. Is that right? I mean, would you agree with that, Diana?
I do. And my example of, the extreme example of, in a fire connecting is one, but so much of interpersonal dynamics can be taught, can be improved, and
Yeah.
has been detracted via some of our technology, like social media, but technology can also help us improve it.
Hmm.
by making time and space for people to connect before meetings, for instance, like this warm space that I talked about, by connecting us in things like the future proof community where we make the time and space to connect across different functions, geographies, ideas, and even the boom in podcasting where we're having really wonderful conversations that people can tap into. I think all those things are fantastic, and AI will augment them. And
Hmm.
hopefully that there is this whole other personalization of media and reputation risk where people could just be in their own reality bubble, listening to only people who agree with them. But what I really hope is that we can have better, specific to AI, better data sets, better intentions, really, that allow it to contribute to connection. So I sometimes people say human-centric technology, and I keep thinking, what is that?
Yeah, it's kind of a
Like
buzzword.
I use it
No,
too, but lately I've been thinking like, what
sounds
is
good.
and it is really thinking, what is it? What if we decide that all the technology should allow us to connect more deeply? What
Hmm.
does that technology look like? And that's why, in a way, I've been wanting to encourage more and different people to be involved in the technology, developing it, playing with it, because then you'll have, I think, more flourishing technology, even more
Yeah.
ideas of how it can help us connect.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the thing is, we had a great podcast with this guy, Jamie Gorman, who's at ASU, and he deals, psychologist, kind of a unique psychologist. He deals with the closed system of humans and the systems of machines and how they interact. And so what's amazing about that, and this is this thing about connection, is I don't think people understand the neuroscience of how we connect. I mean, that would be just one thing huge. The reason people like podcasts is because audio has a different way. I know we're in video now, but audio has a different way of communicating with us. For some
Hmm.
reasons, the voice is more intimate. I mean, I think it goes back to when you're in the womb and you could maybe hear voices. I don't know, but there's something like it. Be and faces sometimes throw us off because we're watching faces, we're not listening to the words. And then there's haptic, which you can touch people and they all have different sensory things to them. But I'm not sure people really understand all that. They just think, well,
They just want the easy
I
button.
texted somebody, they got
Yeah.
back to me.
Yeah. They just want the easy button. Chris,
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the final question, Chris. I mean, we
Well,
got
you
to,
know what I'm going to ask because I really thought this was fascinating
yeah, I did too.
because it's great for our audience. So you said, and it's great because you're a futurist, that there are ways of assessing how likely AI is to affect your current job, which is huge, and how to think about how to adapt your skills or even consider a different career path. So the question is, where are these hidden job markets of the future that no one is telling you about?
Well, I think looking externally first is not always the best way to think about it. I think going in to say, okay, what do I care about? What are my values?
Mhm.
And what are some of my dreams? And then you actually can use ChatGPT to say, I want to imagine a future in 10 years. These are some of the things I want to be doing during the day. This is my perfect day. These are the things I care about. Here are my values. Please tell me some of the interesting ideas you have of what
That's great.
job I might do
Really
in the
good.
future. And then if you can play around with a few iterations of that and then say, okay, if I'm starting here, what are some of the things I might need to do and invest in terms of learning, in terms of, potential
Mhm.
jobs I could do to get there that would allow me and can you please put it into like a schedule over the next 10
That's
years? So that's
great.
one
Yeah, yeah.
thing.
So you're ahead of the curve.
That's a little bit, maybe utopian, depending on what you think, but it's fun. It's very playful. But yes, there is also, and it's increasing every day, some new survey will come out, but you can actually go and into, will AI change my job? I can send you the link. There is a job search index where you can put in, the reality is that it's tasks. So there is a movement from jobs to skills in the future
Mm.
of work conversations, and you can put your skills in. So my job incorporates, for instance, speaking, and it incorporates writing white papers for companies and going in and working with their teams. So there is no particular job for that. It's not as if I was even a barista, like they do so many different things. But what this index does is if I put in speaker, they'll say, oh, the AI can do your outline for your speech. It can at this point do the PowerPoint slides, it can do all these things, but it can't be on stage in front of 2,000 people going, this is going to change your life. And let me tell you about this one
Yeah.
other aspect. It can't tell the story in the same way. And actually, it's not that good at some of the other things. Just because it can do it doesn't mean it can do it well, because, for instance, every time something comes out, I use it immediately. I'm obsessed with that. So I did all my slides via AI for my TEDx that I did late last year. And then I showed it to my 19-year-old daughter, and she was like, ah, that's crap. Nobody's gonna think that's cool, even though
Ah,
it's an AI talk and you used AI for your slides. So I redid them. And I did use AI just for some of those pattern interrupts where you can thinking about what can you use it for, and then it was, I'm not going to give away the surprise, but it was like something interesting, and then something that would make everybody laugh, that was just completely different than anything that they would expect. And
yeah,
that, I
it's
think,
great.
is what humans can be
Well,
Yes.
it's also
really
fascinating because, like, as Mike knows, being an actor, I've worked with, TV, movies, and everything like that. I think there's a fascination with people when they're sitting in the audience going, can't believe they're remembering all this stuff. You know, and I can't, like, I just can't believe it, right? I mean, actors, you think about it, you go like a big monologue, you go, my God, how'd they remember all that?
Well, Chris gets irritated because I'm kind of like Vince Vaughn. I just make it up as I go. He's like, that's not
No, he's good. Mike's very good. He's a ham bone. He loves it.
this has been Diana, this has been amazing, 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 amazing. I know we could go for hours on this. How do people find you? Where do they find you? How can they follow you?
Diana Wu David, DianaWuDavid.com is my website. And that links to my book. It links to our courses. We have a cohort coming up in March that is allowing for LA time as well. So that'll be fun.
Oh, what
We don't, it's global, so we don't often get the Californians in. And it also links to Future Proof Lab, which is where we have our courses.
yeah.
So
Mm.
And how long's that? Look at how dark it's gotten all of a sudden. I mean, light's going in and out.
for you,
How
now
long
it's
is
all
that
light on my
cohort?
side.
Yeah, you're bright. Yeah, I'm getting dark here. Is it like is that a long course or is it how long is the
It's
cohort?
10 weeks. We spend
10
10 weeks
weeks. Beautiful.
together. It's online. I have a whole digital library of master classes, but it's very short things you can do every week that build
Oh,
on
that's
each
great.
other. And then we
Awesome.
come together once a week to talk about it and
Mm.
That's
really
great. That's great.
connect. We come together to connect. The human superpower, I believe in, Mike.
Yeah, yeah, it's great.
Love it.
Well, and for everyone listening, if you want to stay ahead, don't just wait for AI to write the rules. Start getting your own humanist playbook and take Diana as a cohort. And for our loyal listeners, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, share with your friends. Like we say, Mike, remember the future waits for no one, but does send reminders like this podcast.
It does send reminders, so be sure you share it. Until next time, stay human, stay adaptable, stay curious. I want to throw that
I'm
in.
gonna,
Yeah.
Mike, you got to start with that, stay human and then stay adaptable. Otherwise, I mean, you say stay human, I can't say stay human at the end.
well,
Stay
I think it's
connected. I want to
Stay
put that
human,
in.
stay
yeah,
human,
stay
and
connected.
stay human.
That's right. See you guys next time.
Bye
Diana,
bye.
thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
Bye.
She was so good.
You loved her.
Did you see her cup?
Yeah, I did.
The Wonder Woman cup.
Yeah, it's great.
I loved it.
I know you really. I got to turn on my light, man. It's 5 o'clock.
Well, You just, yeah, this is so good.
I was like, my light was like flickering on and off.
I know. Well, it made me think of that song, Sound of Silence.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
There you go. Yeah. I should
Yeah.
have known and put my lights on. There we go.
yeah,
She was fabulous. I mean, it's so great what we're doing because this is just not a conversation. It's almost like it's gelling now.
yeah,
It's almost like even in the conversation, she was coming up with stuff. Like she said,
Yeah.
it's like crowdsourcing, you know?
yeah. I thought it was brilliant. I love the guests that we have on the show, Chris. She's great. I want people to check her out. I definitely want to have some wine.
Yeah.
It
I
is.
wish I was there with you right now.
I know.
We
I
could
wish
have
you
a
were here
glass of
too.
wine.
Yeah,
Huh?
have a glass of wine and we'd kind of,
Oh,
touch
yeah,
base.
you had a hell of a day, you said, huh?
I
Right.
did. It was a crazy day today, but it's
You were good. I mean, I was like concerned. You said you had like 8 calls today and
nine. Yeah,
9,
this was number 10.
and
Yeah.
you're still like
I
your
was
brain
still
is still
coherent.
coherent. Barely.
It's still coherent. Yeah, exactly. But to our audience, guys, plug in because we'll always be coherent. Because with Chris, I got to give you credit for this, Chris. You come up with some of the greatest guests. I mean, I pull in a few, but I mean, I did get Jamie Gorman, which I will say that he was
No, because that's right because he's neuroscience. And what about that guy from Duke? Is he coming on?
I think so.
Like,
Yeah, we had
he's
him
got
on.
this thing called Chew or something like that, right? I mean,
I didn't have we had him on yet?
yeah, we should double check on that. There's a couple people that are like I've invited that we should probably have on. And the thing is that it's a little bit, this is why the futurists, I think, are so good because, some people we've had some people on that are, business people, and they're just like, it's a gold rush,
Yeah.
let's go for it, right? Not totally, but a little bit. And the futurists seem to see, well, okay, this is now we're dabbling, it's a tinker toy. People are going, some are adopting it, some are
tinker
not.
toy.
But in the future, things are going to change. And this idea of the rise of humanness is probably something like we're really going to examine. Like, who was it that said, can't remember, it might have been John Sahn. You're talking about, well, what is human? We're going to
Yeah.
start examining that.
Yeah, that was good. That was good.
Yeah.
Well, check out previous episodes, guys, and plug into the new ones. Be sure you subscribe.
That's right. And Mike and I are going to be doing some other videos like we did before on Human 2.0, where we just rap back and forth and talk through stuff about what does deep seek mean.
We'll do that one next. Well,
Yeah, exactly.
as we
All right,
say,
everybody. We'll catch you next time.
see you
Bye.
next time.
Bye. And remember, future waits for no one, but it does send reminders like this podcast.
I love that. Well, guys, until next time, be adaptable.
And stay human. Bye-bye, everybody.
The rise of humanness in the age of AI. It's a podcast with Chris and Mike. The rise of humanness in the age of AI. Stay curious, stay human, let's rise.